Maddie, walking away, coming back. Hey, make sure you don't have any weird stuff in the background because
my roommate's in there and he must be on the phone or something. I can hear him talking. So I'm just
your roommate probably sucks. We were just talking about graphic tees, and speaking of the king of graphic tees, who's not wearing a graphic tee right now. Oh. Welcome to the show, Maddie.
Well, I can go change real fast if you want me to.
Hey, if you're just in, we've got Matt Dlugos on today's episode of Athlete Stories. We won't do too much of a formal introduction. We'll get into everything about Maddie throughout the show. But also, if you're tuning in and you don't know who the third person is, this is Alex Soroka. He's our producer, director, graphic designer, creative director. We were just talking about the things that we did or didn't do as kids that we kind of regret now in terms of fashion, not like all the other stuff. Soroka had dyed tips, blonde tips. He wore big graphic tees. Maddie, did you have? I mean, you have blonde hair. Did you dye your tips brown?
No, I never dyed my hair. But I went through a phase of having like a pretty tight buzz cut. I'm talking like a 1 or 2 guard all the way around. And so I looked like I had these especially whenever I was younger, I had these big old ears that I didn't grow into yet. So I would just walk around kind of looking like a bit of a monkey with my head shaved, big old ears. So definitely keeping the hair. And that's why I think I like to have a little bit of flow now, because I'm like, I don't like the way that looked. I'm never going to let that happen again.
I agree with you, man. It's funny. You had 6'4" ears long before you were 6'4". Is that what you're saying?
Well before I was 6'4". Dude, I didn't hit a growth spurt until I was like a sophomore in high school.
That's
like I
can
tall.
empathize with that.
Yeah, like I was like taller, like maybe like 5, I don't know, 7, 5'8", 5'9", and then I jumped like 4 or 5 inches in high school. It was obviously painful on the knees, but
yeah, no, same. Like mine is same but different. My junior year, I was 5'1" going into my junior year, and I grew I think 6 inches. I've grown like 1.5 inches since then. But and like you feel it in your hips and your knees like throughout that year. It's like legitimate growing pains. Like, my friggin' hips hurt. Like, but I was like, thank you God 100%. That my hips hurt, because I did not want to be 5'1" my whole life.
And that was a little short.
Not there's anything wrong with that. For anyone that's listening or watching. But hey, let's dive into the show. Matt, I'll just give you a little bit of background. You know, obviously, it's funny because Matt's my roommate and I'm telling him about the show. But the thing about Athlete Stories that we think, me and Soroka think, is different is that obviously we're going to talk about CrossFit. You're a professional CrossFit athlete. A lot of what your life revolves around currently is CrossFit, but I like to dig into the life stories of these athletes that we bring on, kind of find some funny stories from childhood, adolescence, youth, and a bunch of random fun questions we think are fun. And before we get into all that, got to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Alex, are you prepared for this? Cool. I'm gonna dive right in. Our first sponsor is WODproof Bionic. WODproof Bionic is a unique new platform that WODproof came out with that measures your mobility and actually creates an individualized mobility program based on your initial score. WODproof Bionic is available for a free week trial at the link in our bio. The show is also brought to you by X Endurance. X Endurance is one of the sports supplements that I take personally. It's approved by Informed Sport. It's taken by some of your favorite athletes in the CrossFit industry. And if you are a tested athlete, it's one of them that I would recommend. So check them out in the link as well. Back to the show. Soroka, I'm going to dive in here. That doesn't mean you have to go, but
he said peace.
See you, bro. Anyways, yeah, for the audience, funny story, not really a story. Maddie is my roommate. He's sitting like at 8 yards from me, 15 feet,
not too
20
far.
feet.
We could have shared a camera.
There's a washer and dryer like right there, and then he's in the room past the washer and dryer. Anyways, Matt, thanks for being on the show. I've wanted to bring you on for some time. I've just been waiting for the right time to strike, aka waiting for you to get 10K followers. So hey man, if you were going to be a character in any movie, who would you be?
Oh man, character in any movie? I feel like Batman's pretty badass. Or it'd be Batman or Thor. Those would be my two picks.
I think Hiller's taking Batman, so
all right, fine. Well, are we good on the Marvel characters? Like, have people started picking those?
You can be, yeah. No, they haven't.
We'll go with Thor then. How about that?
That's a
Thor.
Good one.
Sure.
Well, if you were going to be a Harry Potter character, who would you be?
Oh, who would I want to be, or where do I fit in the story? Oh, I mean, I feel like Cedric Diggory is a good choice. Although I do die in the Goblet of Fire, but
solid role though. Cool. Until then,
solid role. Yeah, does his part. Kind of what I do.
Sacrificial lamb. Nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean, hey, if we're talking about the topic at hand, I kind of am a sacrificial lamb.
Dude, look at Cedric Diggory.
I mean, I just need a turtleneck, and that's me right there.
You have the black shirt on as well. That's great, dude.
That's great. And I'm even rocking a little bit of the yellow. Perfect, dude. This is perfect.
That's so funny. We I won't get into last night's conversation. Maybe we'll circle back to it.
Perfect.
Matt, if you were to wrap your life story up in maybe 2 to 3 minutes, what would that sound like?
Ooh, quick little overview. I was born and raised in Morgantown, West Virginia, by my loving parents, Kelly and Todd, who've really done a lot for me as far as kind of getting to where I am today. Just instilling really good work, a really good work ethic, good values as far as just, how to be a good human, how to, treat others and, really live your life in a serving way at the same time as chasing after your dreams. So, like I said, I was born in Morgantown, went to school out there, found CrossFit whenever I got to college, started as just kind of a way to get in shape, and then ultimately has snowballed into what it is today, which people, I feel like especially in CrossFit, people talk about that. Like they talk about wanting to chase after, the dream, or they want to chase after being a CrossFit Games athlete, but obviously life gets in the way at some point. But it's been awesome for me to be able to do the things that I need to do to chase this full time. And now I'm kind of seeing the fruits of my labor a little bit, obviously this is just the start, but I think it speaks volumes to being consistent over a long period of time and just working hard, and anything that you want can be achieved.
I love that. I also love how you took a 2 to 3 minute life story and made it an inspirational speech. But I want to dig into that a little bit. You you and I both, we work, like, you're not only an athlete, you are a coach. But we both work in this CrossFit industry, and we get approached by people that want to go to the games constantly, right? Like you're a coach, and I'm working more on the business side of things, and I'll see these intake forms, and it says like, what's your goal? And it's like, go to the CrossFit Games, and almost everybody puts that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the likelihood of that is really so slim, and that's not to be discouraging for it. Like, you should still pursue it, right? Like, if you want to be the president of the United States, the likelihood of that is slim too, but you won't do it unless you pursue it over a long period of time. Anyway, same thing with the games, right? And so it's like, I say that to say that you started CrossFit, what you said when you started college, so we're talking about 7 years ago.
Am I that old? I started college whenever I was 18, and I guess I'm coming up on 25. So yeah. Coming up on 7 years.
You're as old as you feel, Maddie.
No, I don't even think.
Hopefully not in my case, but so that means that when you started, I don't know if you pursued the games right away, but you're 6'4", and historically, CrossFit champions, like not CrossFit athletes in general, but CrossFit champions, like games champions, are, I think, on average 5'9", if you like look historically across the board. So that had to have been somewhat discouraging, but you chose to pursue it anyways. Like, what was your mindset like going into that? Or did you address it? Were you like, oh, it's okay, I'm an athlete, I'll work hard?
That's hard because I really never thought about it. I really never paid attention to how tall I was, the way that movements felt. And, obviously there are movements that I'm not great at. That's okay. But I never looked at my height as the issue for them. I just accepted that I wasn't great at handstand push-ups or that I wasn't great at ring muscle-ups, so I just need to get better. And I think the interesting pursuit for a taller, bigger athlete is that you don't have to just be good, or you can't just be good at a movement. You have to be almost exceptional, whether it is, performing handstand walks or thrusters. Like, you have to do that at a speed and a cadence and, have to be able to continue to output at such a high level that, compared to somebody shorter than you, it might not be as much effort for them to go through that. So, you're constantly in this pursuit of like, yes, I just did, a pretty quick set of 15 thrusters, but like I started at the same time as this guy down here and he got off of it before me. So whenever I'm going through that, I'm like, okay, now when I go back to training, now I have to figure out how to get those, to be as fast as this other guy and still be able to go off and do work. So, that stuff never really bothered me. It never really got to my head, and I believe that like history is always changing and there's not anything that's saying that a 5'9" champion is always going to be the champion. So we'll see what happens.
No, I agree with you. They say history favors the bold, right? It's got to be bold. No, I guess that's how my brain works though. I'm such a pragmatist and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't play basketball. Like I'm 5'8", 5'9", on a good day. Yeah. But, so no, it's really cool. And I think like there comes with any like high level goals, whether it's athletic or entrepreneurial, you have to have this sort of unreasonable optimism in some ways to break past like that season, which is a long season of like growth, right? Because in the very beginning, you weren't good at CrossFit because nobody's good day one. And so like, if you were to be like, oh, I'm 6'4", I'm just not going to do this thing, then you wouldn't be where you are. So it's like, it takes like a season of unreasonability of like, I can do that. Where if you were to talk to like an analyst or like a professional CrossFit coach at the time, they'd be like, Matt, I know you're athletic, but like the likelihood is slim. But you were like, no, I'm just going to do it anyways. And here you are, extremely good at the sport, one of the best, a couple event wins like across the world, and knocking on the door of the CrossFit Games and ultimately being one of the fittest on earth. And so I think that's a good lesson for other people. It's like even people like me, especially that are super practical, like to a fault, where it's like early on, it's like, well, let me just try this anyways, even though on paper it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, let me just get to work, not like get better. Let me grow in these things, and then decide later on, like a couple years down the road, if it's truly something that's realistic, because I still have a whole lot of growth to pursue. So I like that. So you said you're from Morgantown, West Virginia, and you born and raised there. Did you go to college there?
Yeah. So Morgantown has a college university in our town. It's a really weird setup. So everything in Morgantown is it's just hills, everywhere. There's not really much flat space. Everything you're going up, down, around mountain or around the hill or whatever it is. So our school is like built into like obviously into the hills, but then into our city. So Morgantown is kind of like at the center, and then we've got like High Street, and then we've just got like a ton of different little areas of Morgantown. It's an interesting place for sure. But yeah, so I was born there. I went to both middle and high school there, and then I went to WVU for school. Lived there for a year after I graduated, and then made my way out here.
Awesome. And so you've been in Vegas 2 years? Or like a year and a half?
Not quite, a year and a half. Yep.
Awesome. And what's the story there? What brought you to Vegas?
I mean, well, really, it was actually Kotler. So I was working with Justin for a while, and he was like, "Hey, you should come out and do this camp with us. Like, we're putting together a trial run for Terry, right, as she's getting ready for the stage 2 of the 2020 games." So I came out here. I got to train with Bethany and Carrie and Danielle and the whole other gambit of athletes that were out here. Ryan Elrod was still kicking around, so that was really cool. So I trained out here, and like the whole time I was out here, Ashley was kind of just chirping about like, "Oh, when are you gonna move? When are you gonna move?" Kind of like she does to a lot of people. So after she had asked me a couple times and kind of planted the seed, I was thinking about it, the whole week, just like figuring out if it would be realistic or not. And then got back on the plane, like checked everything in, sat down in my seat and kind of had like a moment to breathe and relax. And within the first 5 minutes, I was like, "Yep, I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to pull the trigger. Like, I'm going to talk to whoever I need to when I get back, but I'm going to move out here and just push the chips all in and kind of see where it goes from there." So,
love it. How different would you say Vegas is from Morgantown?
It's 1,000,000% different. It is a complete 180. Morgantown has about 30,000 people. So, population alone is totally crazy. Like, I'm sure I see 30,000 people just like driving down the freeway. But, the pace of life is a little bit similar. Like, there are times where it gets fast here, and especially going down on the strip and things like that. But, this, like where we live is pretty residential. It's pretty laid back. Like, you can go to the grocery store and you can go to Target as quickly as you need to and not really deal with any kind of traffic, any kind of tourists and stuff. But West Virginia is definitely a lot slower. And obviously I miss some things about home, but it's all good. I like it out here.
Awesome. What's your earliest memory in life?
Oh, my earliest memory? Oh, wow, that's a great question. Man, I remember one story. I don't remember exactly how young I was, but my dad used to tell us this story about having a talking rabbit as a friend that he found in the woods. Like, he had this whole elaborate story about how one day he got lost out in the woods behind his house, my grandparents' house, and he was walking and got lost and found this talking rabbit, and this talking rabbit like led him home, and then he invited the talking rabbit in for burgers, and it was just this whole story, and I believed it for the long, for a while. And I remember we were on vacation one time and we were like super hyped up. It was like day 2 that we were there, and we were asking him to tell us the story, and he was like kind of forgetting it. He was like missing parts and saying it wrong. We were like, "Wait, no, didn't you say this?" And he's like, "I don't know. I made that up." And I was like, "Dad, we all believed." Like, me and both of my sisters, we all believed it for a while.
How old were you when you finally found out that it wasn't true?
Man, I think I had like just turned like 18. Like, this was like pretty no, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding, bro. I mean, I was probably like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years old. Like, I had believed it for a minute. Like, it was like, had he continued, I probably would have like told my friends, and they'd been like, "Matt, do you think that's real?" Or but it was like right at that young age. So that's a young memory. Yeah.
Like, did you think that this bunny was related to the Easter rabbit? Like, was there other questions around it? Like,
well, I'm pretty sure he called it Peter, the rabbit. Like,
Peter Rabbit?
Yeah, and so again, had I been a little bit older, I would have maybe put that together, but nope, in my head he had a best friend that was a talking rabbit.
He kind of created his own hybrid Peter Rabbit story. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Back then, where did you guys go for vacation? Like,
Myrtle Beach.
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Yeah, you ever been?
No. I've been to Charleston a bunch of times.
Yeah, Charleston's probably a little bit nicer. Nothing against Myrtle Beach if anybody's listening, but that's
whole bunch
like
of Myrtle Beach fans.
That's like
that are watching.
That's like the capital. We call that like the capital of West Virginia, because so many people for vacation, everybody would go to Myrtle Beach. So you would go down there and run into like 5 West Virginia families.
How long did you believe in Santa Claus?
Oh, that was for a minute as well. I forget when I stopped like believing in Santa.
Had to be around the same time as this Peter Rabbit story ended for you, right? Where you're like questioning everything at that point.
I mean, probably. I'll tell you what, too. My grandpa used to dress up as a rabbit for Easter. So maybe that's why I thought that talking rabbits were real, because like I had seen it a couple times, like him in this Easter bunny suit. So I was like, fuck, or shoot, like that. Maybe that's what it looks like in the woods.
Yo, where did your grandpa get a
tall bunny walking around?
Have you ever seen Donnie Darko, the movie?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, because nobody's seen that movie.
Oh, that's a great movie,
dude. What's his name? The actor. I'm like forgetting every name I know. Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah. Donnie Darko is a weird movie, but that's what I think of when I think of like a grown man wearing a rabbit outfit, like that weird rabbit.
Yeah. Like.
So, how long did your grandpa wear this rabbit outfit? Like, when did that end? Where did he get it from? I have so many questions.
So I do too. I know that he kept it in the attic. I know that that's really all I know. I know that he would just like leave the house, walk down the road with it on, or like put it on, and then come up walking up the street and knock on the house. And I remember for a little while, I was like, I think it was me or maybe it was one of my sisters. There was one of us that was super scared of him for a while. Like he had kind of rattled us with that Donnie Darko looking outfit, and we were just not cool with him coming in.
Yeah, gotta be suspect of a grown rabbit, man.
And probably that was when I was like, okay, is this real or is this G-Dad?
So you guys celebrated Easter. Did you were you raised religious, Christian?
Yep, raised Catholic.
Mm-hmm. So did you go to a Catholic school or anything like that, or like Catholic church? I think mass.
So I went to a middle school that was Catholic, so it was St. Francis Falcons at the time. And we had, a church that was right next to it. We would go on Thursdays to have mass. And then I went to a Christian high school, and it was a little bit along the same lines, except the services were like more non-denominational. It was more, it was more a little bit more preachy, a little bit more laid back, than like a typical traditional Catholic mass.
So at Catholic middle school and Christian, is there a class where you read the Bible, or is it just like behavioral? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, we had, we called it religion class at St. Francis. But again, it was the same thing. Like we would work through not quite the Bible, because we would like read scriptures, we would read parts of it, but we had like a thick like religion book that you would like go through, and it would go through the life of Jesus and all the different stories and things like that. And then in high school we actually had a Bible class, and that was very comprehensive as far as like freshman year, this is what you learned. Sophomore year we moved into these books. For junior year, and so it was and I had a really good Bible teacher too, Mr. Campbell, but very informative for sure.
That's interesting. I had a bunch of friends that have gone to like Catholic and Christian schools, and I've never asked them about the curriculum, which is surprised I've never asked. Like I didn't go to any schools like that, you know what I mean? And obviously like I'm a Christian now and I have my own way of reading and studying and learning, but like I'm like picturing like a multiple choice question, like, did Jesus say this? ABC, like fill in the blank. Like, is that what it was like? Or is it like?
No, I'm trying to think more of what the tests were, or like what the curriculum was. I think like some of it was a little bit. I think some of it was multiple choice, as far as just like making sure that you understood the story. But then I know that we did a lot of essays in high school, at least,
Like
where it was
interpretive
more
essays.
like,
That makes sense.
yeah, like talk about the impact, or talk about what this meant, and or how this relates in in modern times.
What kind of student were you in school? Were you a good student, bad student, funny kid, quiet kid?
Oh man, I was. I probably tried to be funny. I don't think that I was funny.
Still, nothing's changed.
No, I know. I say things now and it does not stick. I'm like, at least it made me laugh. Um, I I feel like I was a pretty good student. I mean, I was an A student, a straight A student. Um, College was a little bit rough. That transition was a little bit rough, especially my first year. I did not set myself up for success. I was like climbing out of the hole from my first semester, but we managed. We did all right.
What's the most trouble you've ever been in, like ever? Childhood, youth, college, whatever.
I didn't really get in a lot of trouble. Yeah, nothing crazy.
Wow.
Pretty good. Good.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so you've never been like grounded or anything, like never did anything wrong?
I mean, I won't say that. I'm just not sure how much of that I want to get into on the podcast. If that makes sense.
That's fine. That's fine.
Trying to push the envelope.
That's okay. Well, people will just have to slide into your DMs if they want to.
Yeah, they can ask me if they want to hear. I don't want my business out there.
Did you grow up with any heroes? Like, did you have a hero, like whether it's a fictional character or non-fictional character?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is more of like a real and deep question. It wasn't like I had, He-Man on my wall or something. But I would say I definitely have two like role models that I look up to in my life. One of them being somebody that I don't know, which is Kobe Bryant, but just his work ethic and his, dedication to the sport, to his craft, to what he wanted to succeed at, is one that I take with me, even now, like kind of that Mamba mentality, like just wanting to put in an absurd amount of work and wanting to, leave no stone unturned whenever I get to the end of my career. And just learning that, like, or, just kind of taking that, like, everything can be competitive, or not everything can be competitive, but like just being able to have that kind of like, killer mindset and, attack training, attack your nutrition the same way that you would as training, attack your sleep the same way that you would as training, all that. So he was definitely a hero for sure. And then I think the cliche one just goes to my dad. But he again is like the one person that I've looked up to as far as hard work and a tough work ethic, as well as like battling through some pretty tough adversity. So anytime that I start to feel bad about not bad about myself, but anytime I start to feel sorry for myself, I kind of look at those two people and, figure out what they would do and get after it.
Love it.
And my dad's a big fan of Kobe too, so we've kind of got that taken care of.
Little motivational triangle.
Yeah.
What is one of the toughest experiences that you've ever been through in life, and how did you overcome it? How'd you deal with it?
Oh, toughest experiences. So, yeah, not a ton of people.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, not a ton of people know this, and it's not because I don't like to share it or I'll get sad or something like that. But I'm sure that you know this about me too. Like, I just kind of keep a lot of myself kind of close to the chest. Like, I play the cards pretty tight. But I will share. Whenever I was in high school, I was a junior. I went to leave and go to my buddy's house, and as I was on my way out, my parents stopped me and they were like, "Hey, we got to sit down and we have to talk." I was like, okay, am I in trouble? Because that's usually what that conversation or what that prefix means. So I sit down and I'm like, what's up? And they're like, well, your dad's had this cough for a long time. Like he's had this like thing going on. We're not sure what it was. They didn't know if it was bronchitis or pneumonia or cold, whatever. But he's had it for a couple months. And so we have done some different scans, some different screenings, and he's got a tumor in his lung, and it's cancerous. And essentially that night told me that my dad had stage 2 lung cancer, which at 15, 16 years old, it's a lot to handle. And you don't really go through those things until you go through things. So I had no idea how to handle it and what to do from there. And I turned to some not great vices to kind of get through all of the the pain of seeing my dad go through that, the feeling of not being strong enough for my sisters or for my mom, or not being able to step into that that man role, right? Like that head of the house type of deal where he couldn't do that, and there was somebody that needed to step up. So for a long time I didn't do that very well. Like I said, I chose some of the wrong vices. But once I kind of got my head on straight, I started turning that into just a strong work ethic. So I used to go before school, like 5 a.m. into the gym with my calculus teacher, and we would like set up I was playing basketball at the time, so we would like go up, hit the weights for like an hour, come downstairs, set up the rebounding gun, or he would rebound for me, and I would just get jump shots up for an hour, and then do the same stuff after school. Like we had a little hoop and all that crap. So it was kind of two-folded in that like I learned, what not to do, how to deal with feelings, but at the same time I learned what a strong work ethic could look like and what I was capable of doing as far as working hard. And yeah, I feel like I've definitely brought that with me all the way until now.
Man, that's tough, right? But you learned how to sort of channel your adversity into your athleticism, right? And your athletic pursuits. And I think, but nobody's perfect, right? I think a lot of us can probably empathize with at first when we deal with adversity, we do some dumb stuff. And then hopefully we get to a point where like, this isn't working. Like, this isn't actually what I want. What else should I do with this adversity? And it's like, let me deposit it into my goals. Let me use it to wake me up early in the morning. And I see you do that with your training now when things pop up, which I admire. How's your dad now? Like, where's he at with the?
He's good. That's something that I should say at the start of the story, but he is fine. He is, I believe, 5 years cancer free.
Love it.
Which is awesome.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
He's still kicking around. Still only he's got like 1 1/4 lung. I like to make sure he remembers that I remember that. But he's got 1 1/4 lung, but he's still kicking but he's still doing really well, man. He's like, he's been working out for a year and a half, which like before he was like a triathlete. Like he was run, swim, bike every single day, like miles and miles. Like he would come back and be like, oh yeah, I ran a 10 miler today. Oh yeah, I biked 30 miles. Like, oh yeah, I swim this long, all the time. And recently he's not able to get back into the swimming, just with some of like the scar stuff, but he's been doing a lot of running and a lot of biking, and then he's been hitting the weights as well. So he's kicking butt for what he's been through, which again is just kind of like that's really motivated me, because anytime I start to feel sorry, I'm like, you have never experienced what it's like to get this stuff taken away from you. So while you have it, enjoy every second of it, even the painful things. Enjoy every second of it.
Yeah, I love that. For what it's worth, even with your dad's 1 1/4 lung, he'd probably still beat me in a monostructural style workout.
That's where I get my lungs from. So,
but that doesn't say much, honestly, and you know that. But So you played sports as a kid. You played basketball. Did you play other sports?
Basketball, I ran a little bit. So I ran track and cross country, like on and off throughout college or throughout high school and middle school. And I also played golf.
Nice. And but Kiefer's better than you at golf, I heard. What?
Yeah, I will admit that without a doubt. Kiefer's a great golfer. I'll give that to him. I hope he's happy.
People listening are like, "Who's Kiefer?" I'm just kidding. Love you, Kiefer.
That's even worse.
They only know who I am because I'm the host of this show. But you're what's one of your proudest moments as a kid or as a young adult?
Well, I'm an Eagle Scout. I don't know that you know this.
I don't know that. What does that mean exactly? Like I didn't get to do all that normal kid stuff.
Yeah. So I went through Boy Scouts. At first, it was a little bit against my will. My mom and grandpa wanted me to do it. Looking back, like I'm very, very thankful for it because like you learn some really important things of like how to just stay alive. You learn some first aid. You learn some basic like survival skills, which is cool. And then you get to go do really cool experiences. So one of those experiences was, for me, they had built. This is a crazy little full circle story, right? So I was a Boy Scout. As I was going through it, you do these different like camps each year, and some of them travel around, or you go to the same one that's local, and then you can go to other ones that are statewide or nationwide or even bigger than that. So what was cool was within my state, they started to build this like 150-acre camp, right? So there's a campground, there's a stage for concerts, there was dirt biking trails, there was zip lining, there was scuba diving, there was archery and skeet shooting, and like all these different activities that you can go do. And like I said, that was within our state, so I got to go down and do that. And then fast forward like 2 years later, or it was a couple years later, I was done doing that, like the Boy Scout stuff. I go back for a CrossFit competition, and it's at the same campsite that I was at like 2 years prior or 3 years prior. And I like remember seeing the same things, and like I was like, oh yeah, we would walk through there, like we would take that little cut and go up to our camp, whatever. But that's actually how I met Justin. That was the first competition that I was introduced to Justin. And then from there we went to London, and then we went to, did the story writes itself from there. But yeah, that's where I first met Justin. And I know that was a little bit off track of what your question was, but.
And yeah, for the audience who doesn't know, Justin is Justin Kotler, the coach and owner of Underdogs Athletics, who runs the camp here in Las Vegas where Matt trains. Everyone's like, duh. Of course we know that.
We know that.
What who's your favorite CrossFit athlete and why? Like someone you looked up to before you kind of started getting into the scene, someone maybe you still look up to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got to go with Brent Fikowski. I think that he's just always going to kind of be like the shining light. Like he's kind of the leader of this like tall, big men movement. Yeah, and obviously his work ethic and all the things that he's overcome in his years are very, very inspiring. I'm a big fan of Travis Mayer as well. There's a lot. This is a tough question. Why you gotta ask this question? I'm a big fan of Travis.
Like, bruh, you named two people.
I was literally just getting to him. That was my next one. Well, and they're all for different reasons, right? Like Brent is definitely the leader as far as like, hey, this is the mold that you have to fit in, or that you kind of have to get yourself to in order to be successful. So it's like, okay, if I am, if I look at Brent Fikowski and I can, do this the same, but I got to work on these two things, like that's perfect because that gives me, a pretty direct line of action. Travis Mayer is just like, he's just a savage. Like I love his he's just like he's that gardener, or he's that warrior in a garden, right? Like he is just like the most laid back, like most gentle man when you're talking to him, like father of four, very, very nice. We had great conversations throughout the weekend, but whenever it's time to turn it on, like turns into a freaking animal, like turns into a savage. It's crazy and awesome to see. Like it's amazing. Noah's also definitely one of my favorites just because he's like, I love the positivity that he spreads and just how, authentic and genuine his love is and how it just kind of like pours out. And obviously as a man, or as an athlete for sure, that's what you want to get to, but like as a man, trying to do this sport and also spread something bigger than the sport, he is kind of like the key guy to look at, in my opinion. So
love that.
Yeah.
Great explanations. Top 3.
Yeah.
What's your favorite CrossFit workout? Do you have like a favorite?
Oh man, I mean, well, I'll tell you this. If Rob makes me get on a rower or do wall balls one more time, I'm gonna quit. Rowing and wall balls is my least favorite. I would say my favorite workout would probably be Kalsu with thrusters and burpees. That's like, if you could add in strict handstand push-ups to like the end of that, like a buyout.
There you go.
Perfect.
A little bit of sarcasm for you guys. What's your favorite competition you've done so far? I know the answer to this, but
what's your answer?
Wodapalooza for sure.
Wodapalooza was a lot of fun, I will tell you that. But the Granite Games is probably. Oh wait, but you asked what's my favorite, or no, you asked which one was the most fun.
Yeah, I think one or the other. I actually don't. Hold on. Let me see. I might have notes. What's your?
The answer differs.
I don't know. I actually don't have it written down. That was off the cuff. What's your favorite one?
Granite, for sure.
Okay. And why is that?
Just because it was a great summation of all of the things I've been working on this past year, mainly mental. Not getting rattled by missing a lift, not getting rattled by the Up Bar Fiasco, not getting, rattled by anybody else's game plans throughout the weekend, which at West Coast Classic, if you would have told me, it was like all over the board, right? Whereas this was rather consistent. And so I was just very happy with like the execution throughout the weekend. But then at the same time, I think every athlete kind of needs that little fire under their butt, right? Whether it's Matt finishing second at the games and then being like, oh, I never want to finish second again. Or if it's, a guy like Brent Fikowski missing out for, a couple of years by one spot. Everybody has to have that kind of, fire lit underneath of them. And I feel like that's what Granite was. It was like, hey, everything you're doing is working, but keep working, keep doing it.
Love that. Love the mindset, Maddie. I know you don't want to touch on this too much, but I'm interested, especially for the audience, to kind of gain a better understanding. The pull-up bar fiasco. Can you explain physically what that was like? And I'm not like trying to get you to sound like you're making any type of excuse, but I just want to because most people have no clue what it's like to be 6'4" hanging from a pull-up bar where your toes may be touching. So what was that like physically? Yeah. Like, what did you have to change in order to do those chest bars? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I take my hands out a little bit wider than I would like to. For me, whenever it comes to chest bars, there's like a certain angle that I like to send my elbows back at, and that I like to like pull into the bar with, which is all just it's more based on feel, but there's a pretty standard area for my hands to be for that. So for this, I'm ending up going a lot wider than I like to be. And then basically from the start, you're just kind of like tucking you're tucking at the knee to pick your foot up. And then you're like you never get to straighten it. So it's just basically like your knees are kind of the end point of your kip, right? So like typically how you like to see like the feet, knees, and toes all moving together through the movements. For me, it's going to be broken. And so now my feet are going to be bent up, and now it's just my knees and my hips trying to get a lot of power and force, which you can try it at home and it's not going to be very successful. Like you're going to end up doing a lot more with the upper body and just like getting thrown off, and it's just a little bit more jarring like on your arms because you're not quite like able to get back and then through. And so yeah, there's a lot with technique that goes out the window whenever you're trying to make that happen.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've like warmed up pull-ups, chest to bar, toe to bar on a low hanging bar where your toes touch, and it's like, oh, this is weird. So I know what you mean.
And it would
like,
be one thing if it was like on my tippy toes and I could still touch, because like I know that I'm tall, right? But that was a little bit too short. Like I think a lot of guys in the field, and like obviously if you look at the field at Granite Games, there were a lot of bigger guys, especially height wise, like a lot of guys in that 6 foot range. And I guarantee you that if they wanted to, they could reach up and grab the bar as well. So yeah.
A couple last I don't know, rapid fire style questions. If you could put anything up on a big blank billboard for like over the busiest intersection that you know, what would it say?
Be nice or love yourself.
Like the whole thing or one or the other?
One or the other. Depending
People are driving and they're like, be nice or love yourself. And like, I have to choose.
I think by loving yourself, you would be nice. So maybe we'll go with that.
Hey, that's deep. We'll let that sit for a second. What did you say? If you love yourself, you'll be nice. Wow. If are you a reader, Matt? Do you read?
I am. I'm getting better at it. I don't have as big of a shelf as you, but I'm getting better at it.
That's okay. I don't think I'm just one of those people that loves to read. I know that I'm lucky in that way. But what's your favorite book or one of your favorite books?
One of my favorite books, How Champions Think by Bob Rotella. That was a book that I was recommended by Justin, and I read it for the first time whenever I was in Norway, heading out to a competition out there, and then I read it multiple times since then. And it's a golf book, or he's a golf coach, so he's worked with a lot of golfers, which, you know, inherently CrossFit's kind of going to be the same as golf whenever it comes to like you are an individual, you are competing against others, but at the same time, it doesn't matter like how another person does, it matters how you do. You can't control what they shoot, but yeah, a lot of really good principles in there, and I can relate to it. So
love it. What's your favorite cereal?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
These 110-degree summers in Vegas.
Well, yeah, maybe not summer here. Maybe winter here, which is still like 70.
Yeah, it's summer anywhere else. If you weren't pursuing a career in CrossFit, what would you be doing?
Trying to be the best at whatever else I was doing, whether it was being an engineer, being a physical therapist, being a coach. I would just try to be as good as I can be at it.
If you could do any like CrossFit competition, like one of the famous ones, whether it's Rogue or Dubai or any of those, which one would you want to do the most?
Dubai. That's the big one. I want to take my mom to Dubai. I think that she would love it. And so we're gonna try to do some things in the next couple of years to make that happen. But,
awesome. Love
it.
Yeah. So if anybody from the Dubai CrossFit Championship is listening, how much of success in CrossFit, like in the sport of CrossFit, whether it's for you or for others, would you say is related to, like, if you were going to draw a pie graph and designate a certain percentage to hard work and designate a certain percentage to genetics, what would you give it?
That's tough, because obviously you have people at the top that are very, you know, there's definitely an inherent gift that they've been given, right? Like Tia's got a gift, Matt's got a gift, like we see athletes day to day that have just like something inherent that's gifted to them, but I don't think that ever, like, I can still get my full slice of the pie by working hard. Like, I'm never going to not be able, I don't think I'll ever not be able to not achieve something that somebody else can if I'm putting all of my work towards it. So I would say pretty close to 100%. You dream big. Like, I mean, dude, this is just me and you talking. Well, obviously we're recording, but like, look at me, right? Like, I'm 6'4". I weigh 220 pounds. I smack my feet at the bottom of the pull-up bar, and yet I'm doing something that a lot of people dream of, and that a lot of people work for, and I was pretty close this year to, getting something that I've wanted for a long, long time. So for me, again, like, this is what we were saying earlier, I don't ever think about the issues that come with my genetic build or my, biomechanical setup. Like, if I start thinking about that stuff, then I'm gonna put a cap on myself. So yeah, I don't think that should ever come into your pie. Like, you just eat that hard work, and dreams will come true.
Love it. Inspirational speaker, Matt Dlugos. Beach or mountains?
Oh, I gotta say beach.
All right. What's your favorite cartoon show from a kid or even now?
Well, this reminded me whenever I was in Minneapolis, but have you ever seen the show Bear in the Big Blue House?
Yeah, but like a long time ago, obviously.
Yeah, so that show, I loved watching that show as a kid. And one of my training partner, Alex, one of her friends at the gym, had this big dog. His name was Todd, which I love human names for animals, but his name was Todd, and he looked exactly like the bear from Bear in the Big Blue House. So that was a favorite growing up for sure. Yeah.
What's your favorite now?
What was the rest of the question?
You still watch
my favorite
cartoons?
Animated show now? Oh, I do still
Sure.
watch cartoons. Well, yeah, you know that I'm on my anime kick, and Samurai Champloo is my favorite one recently. If people want to go watch that, it is a very good anime. It's only a season long. It's very good. It's on Hulu.
Love it. If you could have the choice between talking to all animals in the world or knowing all human languages, which would you choose?
Knowing all human languages. Because what if Danner is thinking something that, like, gonna make me upset? If he's like, Dad, I want you to stop petting me right now. I'm like, damn, I didn't want to know that.
I do think about that too. Like, Callie would talk so much, bro. Like, and she'd probably be such a diva. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and you know Danner. Danner's a little crackhead, so he would just be, I don't know. He'd be like the kid from the freaking that show. That little kid. What show am I thinking of, Jared? Oh, come on.
You didn't give me much. The little kid.
No, he's the little jabbery kid. Oh man, I gotta look it up.
I don't know. Stuart Little?
You know this. No.
Give me more.
Oh, what is it?
Little jabbery kid from the show.
The Wild Thornberries. The little dude from the Wild Thornberries.
Is it Elijah Thornberry?
That I'm not sure. Donnie Thornberry is the one that they're saying is the crazy.
That would be Danner.
That is Danner. He would just be a little crack addict. Yes. Tell me that's not my dog.
Dude, 100%. Oh, that's perfect. Thank you, Stroka. Matt, last question. How do you want people to remember you? Obviously, way later on in life.
What we were talking about earlier. as somebody who loved themselves and somebody who taught others to love themselves, and then all the other good things that flow from that.
Love it. Matt, thanks for being on the show, man. Loved getting to know you a little bit better, even though I get to know you a little bit more every day, and super excited for the audience to get to know you as well. Can't wait to continue to watch you excel in this sport and as a human. And we will wrap up the show. Again, thanks to X Endurance and Wadproof for supporting the show. Thank you, Sroka, for producing, directing, creating. And thanks, Matt, for being on.